Hey, Cules. Picture the scene. It's a chilly night in northeast England. St. James Park is roaring like a volcano about to erupt, and suddenly, in the middle of this black and white chaos, a guy with a Manchester accent appears. Someone who seems to have discovered the magic formula to make the Magpies cry. Yes, I'm talking about Marcus Rashford, that Manchester United loanee who arrived in Barcelona like someone going on a spiritual retreat and ended up becoming the Cule Messiah. But let's take it step by step, because yesterday, in that Champions League match that left us all speechless, Barça didn't just win 2-1 against a Newcastle side that promised to be an impassable wall, they also left the English press in a state of absolute shock. Headlines like, "Rashford silences Newcastle's party," in The Guardian, or, "Barcelona is already ready to win it all," in The Athletic, which is precisely not a sensationalist tabloid. And here's the thing, Cules. When the English, who think they're the kings of physical football and pressing, start stammering about how Barça gave them a lesson in tiki-taka reloaded, you know something big is happening. The opening whistle blows at 8 p.m. local time, and the stadium is hell. Newcastle's fans, those guys with beers in hand and throats sharp as knives, roar with every tackle as if it's the winning goal. Eddie Howe, the Magpies coach, has set up a team that looks like it's straight out of a gladiator movie. Bruno Guimaraes is in the middle like an octopus stealing balls. Anthony Gordon is sprinting down the left wing with the energy of a kid in a candy store, and Nick Pope in goal, ready to stop shots with his face if necessary. Up front, without a real number 9, because Isaac is injured or something like that, who knows with them. They put an improvised Gordon as a false 9, Harvey Barnes and Jacob Murphy on the wings to burn down the flanks. Their plan: press high, steal the ball, and counterattack at the speed of a high-speed train. And at first, it works. In the first 15 minutes, Barça looks like a nervous visiting team, touching the ball cautiously, as if walking on eggshells. Lewandowski gets a few long balls, but Ben Botman and Fabian Schär, that pair of central defenders who look like twin towers, cut off his supply. Robert Lewandowski tries a header in the 18th minute, but Pope comes out like a lion and punches it clear. The Cules in the stadium, those watching on TV, were biting our nails. What's going on, Xavi? Are you already testing us with the English bus? But wait, because here comes the subtle humor of the night. Picture Trippier, Newcastle's right back, who's seen it all in his career, trying to mark Fermin Lopez, who's buzzing around him like a mosquito. Fermin, that La Masia kid who seems to have drunk a youth elixir, steals a ball in midfield and finds himself alone, but his shot is deflected by a meter. Trippier sighs in relief, but on the bench, Hansi Flick, with that German professor face that doesn't tolerate mistakes, mentally notes, "Next time, you finish." And it's no joke, Cules, because Flick has turned this Barça into a ruthless machine. Remember, we came into this match with absences. Yamal's La Masia is dry-docked, Pedri struggling, and yet we field a lineup that screams ambition. Joan Garcia in goal, making his Champions League debut, the poor guy sweating bullets, Condé and Araujo at the back like two lions, Count covering the gaps with the maturity of a veteran, and in midfield, De Jong controlling the tempo like a conductor. With Rafinha and Olmo on the wings, Lewandowski as the offensive pivot, and Rashford, the man of the day, floating like a ghost between the lines. Now, let's talk about the shock of the English press, because that's what brings us here. As the match heats up, the journalists in the St. James Park press room are already frantically typing away. The Daily Mail, never one to hold back, provisionally headlines, "Newcastle piles pressure on Barça and class." But deep down, they know their narrative of the Magpies devouring the Cules is collapsing. At the 25th minute, Gordon has the chance to equalize. No, to make it 0-1 for them. The Swede, quick as lightning, crosses from the right, and Gordon, alone in front of Garcia, blasts it. The ball slips under his studs, and the stadium groans like a soul in pain. At that moment, the English pundits exchange glances. Seriously, against a Barça that looks hungover. But no, Cules, it's not a hangover, it's calculation. Flick has studied how like a chess player studies his rival. He knows Newcastle's high press burns fuel, and we, with our 64% possession by the end, let them run until they exhaust themselves. It's like inviting a friend to a race knowing he's wearing high heels. Funny, but predictable. And if you're already freaking out about how Barça is handling the English storm, subscribe to the channel, because what's coming is even stronger, because we're going to analyze it goal by goal and headline by headline, and you won't want to miss it. Okay, back to the match thread. The first half ends 0-0, and in the locker room, Howe rallies his players, Press higher, lads. These Catalans are made of glass. But Barça comes back out with a different face. Flick adjusts. He brings on Eric Garcia for Count to reinforce the midfield, and suddenly, the ball moves like butter. In the 58th minute, a corner for Barça. De Jong hangs it in the box, and here comes Rashford, leaping like a salmon up a river, heading it in at the near post. Pope stretches like a cat, but the ball kisses the net. 0-1. The stadium falls suddenly silent, and in the stands, a few cules disguised as tourists raise their arms. Rashford runs to the sideline, covers his ears, the classic gesture. Hey, and the world wonders, this Rashford, who seemed lost in a labyrinth at Trafford? The English press, already sensing the upset, goes into controlled panic. In The Guardian, Jonathan Wilson tweets something like, Rashford, from pariah at Trafford to hero at St. James. Barça isn't just winning, it's dominating. And it's not an exaggeration, because 9 minutes later, in the 67th minute, comes the goal that blows up the internet. Lewandowski receives with his back to goal, spins like a dancer, and threads a millimeter-perfect pass to Rashford, who's at the center circle. The Englishman doesn't think twice, feints a dribble, lifts his head, and unleashes a 30-meter missile that nestles into the top corner. Pope doesn't even move. It's one of those goals you watch in slow motion and think, my God, even I would have scored that in my dreams. St. James Park turns into a library, and the local journalists, those who were expecting a feast for Howe, are now frantically writing. Barça exposes Newcastle's weaknesses with clinical beauty, writes the Daily Mail, reluctantly admitting that our counterattack is lethal. Watch out, Cules, because Newcastle doesn't give up easily. In the 90th minute, Gordon, the same one who missed earlier, steals a ball from Condé and places a left-footed cross shot that Garcia can't stop. 1-2. The stadium erupts again, and for a second, it seems there's hope. Howe jumps off the bench like a spring, and the Magpies push with the pride of those who don't want to go to bed early. But Barça, this team Flick forged in the fire of pre-season, shuts down like a clam. Araujo sweeps away everything that smells like danger. De Jong recovers balls as if they were coins on the ground, and even Lewandowski drops back to help with the press. The 4 minutes of added time feel eternal for the locals, but the final whistle arrives like a relief. Cule victory, 3 points in the bag, and the Champions League starts on the right foot. Now the real reality. The English press, which yesterday morning talked about how Newcastle was going to pull off the upset of the year against a Barça in reconstruction, wakes up today with the hangover of reality. The Athletic leads with, Rashford overshadows Newcastle's party and seals Barca's win. They talk about how our ball control, 19 shots, 5 on target, 64% possession, smothered the opponent. This team is already ready to win it all, an analyst drops, and it's no joke.
Why?
You know what? Flick, in the press conference, drops a bomb, Rashford can give much more. This is just the beginning. Imagine the faces of the editors at The Sun, who headline, Flick and Barça, Europe's wrong writers once again, British humour included. Another jokes that Rashford returned to England to settle the outstanding bill with United, but along the way, he sank the Magpies. They're not exaggerating, but the tone is one of incredulity. As if a Barça without Yamal, with a debutant goalkeeper and a lone striker, came to Tyneside and gave them a lesson in total football. Let's dive deeper into Rashford, because this guy is the epicenter of the earthquake. He arrived in Barcelona on loan from United in the summer after a grey season where he seemed like a lost soul under Ten Hag. We, the Cules, welcomed him with skepticism, another Englishman to complicate the dressing room? But Flick, who already knew him from the national team, saw him as a rough diamond. In training, he said his shots were incredible, and last night, he proved it. That header wasn't luck. It was perfect timing, leaping between Botman and Schär as if they were cones. And the second goal, Cules, that left-footed strike is one of those that stays etched in memory. In ESPN, they call it a return to grace for Marcus Rashford, far from the Manchester United path. The English, who love their dramatic comebacks, paint it as a Shakespearean redemption, the prodigal son who returns home and burns it down, but deep down, they admit the credit goes to the Cule system. Barcelona's midfield, De Jong, Casado, Fermin dictated the tempo, and Rashford was the finisher, writes Pileem in the BBC. Total Football, a team many wrote off after years of financial hardship, now aspires to the Orejona. And let's not forget the other silent heroes. Joan Garcia, the Espanyol loanee goalkeeper, who in his first European match with Barça, stops a shot from Guimaraes in the 35th minute, then shines with the save on Gordon in the 90th. The English praise him, a challenge for Holland, says the Telegraph. Then there's Pau Cubarsí, that 18-year-old kid who covers the right flank like a veteran, stealing balls from Elanga and Murphy without breaking a sweat. In the Times, they compare him to a miniature Peak, but with more legs. Subtle humor. If Cubarsí keeps this up, the Magpies will dream about him tonight. And Lewandowski, who doesn't score but pivots like a titan, winning aerial duels and dropping deep to press. At 38, he seems eternal. The English press, which wrote him off 2 seasons ago, now headlines, "Louis shows that playing is priceless." It's as if we've resurrected a dinosaur and made it dance the salsa. But let's get to the heart of the shock. Why is the English press so stunned? Because Newcastle represented everything British football prides itself on: intensity, atmosphere, grit. Howe, in the press conference, admits, disappointing. We were in the game. Poor execution in key moments. Gordon, the goalscorer, says, good team. Hard to break down. It's a veiled confession. Barça didn't just win, they outclassed them on their own turf. In Sky Sports, Gary Neville, the United legend, analyses, Barça looked like a team controlling the wind. The whole team converged toward Rashford's world-class goal. Neville, who is precisely not a Culé fan, represents the shift from the pre-match mockery Barça collapses against Newcastle to forced, independent admiration. Flick's performances create trophy contenders, Cules. When the English use contenders for us, it's like the Pope blessing an atheist. Pure shock. Let's talk about Flick, the architect. The German arrived at Barça in 2024 with a dizzying CV: Champions League finalist with Bayern, World Cup semi-finalist with Germany. But here, in a club in economic crisis, he's worked magic. We build from the back, but with heart, he says in perfect English. Last night, he proved it. Joan Garcia initiates actions with short passes. Cubarsí pushes up like a full-back, and the midfield trio, De Jong the metronome, Casado the destroyer, Fermin the wildcard, generates numerical superiority. Newcastle, with Guimaraes and Tonali, can't compete. They lose 8 duels in midfield. In Outlook India, which follows the Premier League, they call it Flick's masterclass. The English, jealous, admit, Barça has turned Flick into a winning machine. Aged, but a legend. And let's not forget one crucial detail: the duel between Fermin Lopez and Sandro Tonali. The Italian, who cost Newcastle a fortune, was seen as the man who would dominate midfield. But Fermin, that kid from Huelva who looks like a teenager but plays like a veteran, kept him in check. In the 47th minute, Tonali attempts a long pass to Gordon, but Fermin reads the play, intercepts, and launches a counterattack that ends with a deflected shot from Rafinha. According to Opta, Fermin made 4 interceptions and 3 recoveries, many of them against Tonali. In the Independent, they mention Lopez versus Tonali, battle of youth against experience. And that's the thing, Cules, Fermin doesn't just run, he thinks. At one point, you see him talking to De Jong, adjusting positions to close spaces. Flick, from the bench, nods like a proud father.